Platform fighters, do they count as fighting games? Yes. I'm sorry. Anybody that says that platform fighters do not count as fighting games blows my mind when they call them platform fighters. Like you fight, they're characters fighting. It's a fighting game. You use neutral and stuff like that. The same type of thing you do in fighting games. It's a fighting game. It may be different. It has slightly different rules than 2D fighting games, just like 2D and 3D have different rules, right? Like,
Fighting games, like pretty much every major genre in the games industry, have their own
load.
grouping that gives rise to subgenres. We've actually touched on some of the existing ones within fighting games in a different video, which you can check out after this one. This is a conversation that has been going on for years, if not decades. There are a lot of different perspectives on this topic, and so your answer can vary a lot depending on who you are talking to. In today's Dash Fight video, we're not only going to give you our answer as to whether or not
No one ever says anything that really makes any sense, because they're like, oh, you have to turn the items off in Smash and it's like, that's the only one you're talking about. It's like Smash is the only one you're talking about. There are other platform fighting games. They're fighting games, use neutral, footsies, spacing, all that kind of stuff. Like, all of the fundamentals of fighting games are used in platform fighters, just like they are in 3D fighters and in 2D fighters. So it doesn't make any sense to exclude them from the fighting game category. Like, if you don't play that fighting game, if you don't play platform fighters, that doesn't mean that it's not a fighting game. It just means you don't like that type of game. You don't play that game. I don't understand why it can't be both a fighting game that is also a party game. I don't understand why those two things have to be separate. That's like saying that Mario Kart is not a racing game, it's a party game. Or it can't be both. Mario Kart is a party game and also a racing game. And if you don't classify it as a party game, it has items in it and all this other stuff in it, like Smash does. But it's a racing game. It's like, oh no, it's not a racing game. It's a kart racer. It doesn't make any sense to me.
not platform fighters are real fighting games, but also some of the
Yoshimitsu.
different lenses through which not only the community, but also developers have looked at fighting games and what the subgenre of platform fighters has evolved into. Before we jump into it, however, remember that if you like this video or any of our content, you can always subscribe to the channel and make sure all of your notifications are on.
Like is a strong
You can also check
word,
out our website,
but
dashfight.com,
let's see what
where
you
can see
guys say.
articles as well as
I assume that Dash Fight is gonna be like, no, platform fighters are not fighting games. If the same guy wrote the other thing that pissed me off, wrote this video, then I can see him saying that platform fighters are not fighting games. Or Dash Fight as a whole just doing the I'm gonna piss people off thing and say that it's not a fighting game. I guess you would still piss people off if you do say it is a fighting game. So I don't know which side they're gonna go.
Helping you keep up to date with everything in the fighting games community.
No clear definition.
Even just to begin a discussion about whether or not platform fighters are fighting games by themselves, we have to start with some sort of definition. Unlike
definition of a fighting game: characters on screen on a stage fighting. That's it. That's it. That's it. Because then you got the people. Oh well, what about single player games that had it? They had fighting. They had brawlers and stuff like that, like beat 'em ups. They had beat 'em ups in the fighting game category for the video game awards, and it was like, what are these doing here? They're not fighting games. These are games that have fighting in them. And it's not like a competitive thing where you have two players taking control of a character and fighting them together to win out at the end. No, they had like stuff that were like beat 'em ups, like Double Dragon. Like, and they're like, this is a fighting game. It's like, technically, yes, it's a fighting game, but it's not the definition of a fighting game that we all know we're talking about. Like,
other genres, fighting games are actually very hard to define clearly.
it's not.
It creates just a series of checkboxes that have to be met. So in the simplest terms possible,
The only thing that makes them hard to define clearly is people who will try to disprove what you're saying by saying, well, that also includes Double Dragon game because it has 2 players and they're on a stage and they're fighting characters and trying to win. Like, those are the people who make it hard to define clearly. Like, anybody who's if you're like, oh, what's a fighting game? Like, you're like, oh, like Street Fighter or Tekken or something like that. Like, fighting games. Oh, okay, yeah. Any sane person would be like, yes, oh, I understand what you mean by a fighting game. Like, even non-hardcore fighting game players, if you ask them, hey, do you know what a fighting game is? Can you give me an example of a fighting game? They're probably gonna be like, oh, Street Fighter, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, so like that's probably the first 2 answers they'll give you, and maybe Tekken. Like, those are the 3 big ones. Like,
a fighting game is one in which 2 opponents engage in melee combat, sharing space inside one screen, often until one of the characters is knocked out. And yes, every single asterisk in this statement is there for a reason, because fighting games are widely complex, and a lot of the time, what makes a fighting game fun is breaking the mold and doing something that is fun through the subversion of the genre. I mean, there is a game that literally combines chess and fighting game mechanics. This chaotic trait should mean that platform fighters feel right at home in the genre, but at various points during the history of the industry, questions have been raised about it. But why? Well, one explanation is that
because
most
people just like gatekeeping.
Tenets. From the fact that health bars are gone and in their place, percentages of damage taken, the emphasis on air combat, the stages that change the dynamics around cornering opponents, and the size of characters on the screen all contribute to a feeling of otherness between them and the wider fighting game genre. Yet, we think there might be a completely different culprit to this divide.
The quintessential platform fighter. Smash.
There's no conversation about platform fighters that is complete without the mentioning of Super Smash Bros. Not just a major platform fighter, not just a major fighting game, but one of the biggest franchises,
the platform fighter
of all time. Although not the perfect measurement of success, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the only fighting game that has been nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards back in 2019. Yes, even in 2023 with Street Fighter 6 breaking all sorts of records, the team at Capcom has yet to be put in the running for Game of the Year. Obviously, industry accolades are not the be-all of this conversation, but
a month ago.
As to where the gaming industry
didn't they just win Game of the Year? Didn't Street Fighter? Yes, what? Best fighting game nominees. What? Dude, Street Fighter literally just won fighting game of the year. What do you mean? This video is a month old. A month. A little more than a month, maybe, right? Yeah, a little more than a month. It's from December 26th. So they must have wrote this right before the fighting, but it was still nominated for fighting game. It was still nominated. Even if it didn't win yet, it was still nominated when he wrote. Like, how long ago did y'all write the script for this?
Sees platform fighter games like
let me make sure.
Nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards back in 2019. Yes.
Wait, 2019.
Even in 2023, with Street Fighter 6 breaking
Even in 2023 with Street Fighter
all sorts
6
of records, the team at Capcom has yet to be put in the running for Game of the Year.
Oh, Game of the Year. Game of the Year. Not Fighting Game of the Year. Whatever. That's because Street Fighter 6 is nowhere near as big like right now as Smash Brothers is. Like Smash Brothers is insanely like larger than Street Fighter. Even Mortal Kombat is insanely larger than Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat 10, I'm pretty sure sold way more than Street Fighter. I'm not sure about Mortal Kombat 1, but like Mortal Kombat is a bigger fighting game than Street Fighter is. Street Fighter is one of the oldest and one of the most recognized, but like Mortal Kombat is just bigger.
Obviously, industry accolades are not the be-all, end-all of this conversation, but it gives us a hint as to where the gaming industry as a whole sees platform fighter games like Super Smash Bros. They are categorically in the fighting game genre. Whether we like it or not, Super Smash Bros., especially the run-up from the original game to arguably its peak in Melee, has had a lasting impact on the genre. So much so that its features and mechanics became an easy test against future platform fighters, potentially stifling their popularity. To make a point of comparison, there used to be a game that absolutely dominated its genre, that made it so that everybody believed all games like it were just a little bit of a copy of that original title, modified a bit maybe, some changes to the game's mechanics here and there, but ultimately the core of that game is what made it fun, and thus every other game made after it that had some similarity to it would be called a clone of it. Of course, I'm talking about Doom and Quake, which very quickly gave rise to an entire subgenre called Doom and Quake clones, which, over many years, developed into what we now know as first-person shooters. For a very long time, platform fighters were simply called Smash clones. They were all a copy of Smash Brothers. Of course, now, with many more years of developers iterating on the idea of Super Smash Bros., we are getting more and more interesting takes on the genre. With every new title that comes out in the platform fighting subgenre...
But you know what? I think the difference between fighting game, the fighting game or this situation and Doom and the Doom clones and FPS games is that like it's way further removed. Like Doom is so far away from Call of Duty, like so far away from like Call of Duty. Like in the like there's multiplayer. There's like it's the arena shooters and there what else they have like so like I think Doom is closer to like what like arena shooters would be now. Like so like Doom is probably closer to Halo multiplayer more than like Call of Duty multiplayer or like these other first person shooter games. But like they're just it's different. Like I don't know. It's just more time has elapsed in between those things. Whereas like in the beginning you have, you know, just like they are doing now with the Smash clones, but like fighting games already exist. Like fighting games exist already. Like Street Fighter was first. Like it wasn't like there was a platform fighter game and Street Fighter came out at the same time, and then platform fighters evolved one way, and then Street Fighter evolved a different way. It was Street Fighter was first, and then all other fighting games were, you know, being cloned and came from that. So you kind of can say Smash Brothers is an evolution of Street Fighter. For real. Because like if you have Doom and then all in Doom and whatever other the other one he said, you have like games that come from that and are clones of that, and then further down the line they start coming up with more creative ways to do that thing. Smash Brothers is a more creative way to do a fighting game, which came from Street Fighter and all the other things, all the games, all the Street Fighters, all the 2D games, all the games that have fireballs and DPs and all that shit came from Street Fighter. They all have the same inputs damn near. Some of them have slightly different inputs or whatever. And like for supers, like for KOF, you got to go like half circle back forward or whatever, but like for the most part, a fireball is a fireball. In KOF and in Street Fighter and in any other game that has a fireball, it's most likely just a fireball motion, which is why we call it a fireball motion. Like, and then they found easier ways to do that. So in Smash Brothers, the special moves are all just one direction and a button. The same thing that they're starting to do with fighting games now. So they're like, oh, well, they evolved from fighting games. Let's take a page out of their book and start making simple controls for people, because maybe that's a part of the reason why Smash Brothers is so widely loved and played, because it's much easier to do special moves and all that kind of stuff in that game rather than doing special moves in like Street Fighter or any other 2D fighter or anything like that, because people have a hard time. People have a hard time doing fireball motions and DP motions and charge motions. People have a hard time. I remember learning how to do these moves on an arcade stick, and I remember doing like fireballs and DPs and stuff on controller where you just kind of mash it or whatever. Like, that's what people do. People mash out DP, and I still will mash out DP on a controller. Like, I still do that to this day. I'm not gonna try to be precise on a D-pad with a dragon input, dragon punch input. But like, if you want to throw a fireball, like, it's easy. Like, to us now, it's like breathing. Like, throwing a fireball on an arcade stick or a pad or whatever, it's like breathing. But some people cannot throw fireballs consecutively. Like, some people cannot do flash kicks. Some people cannot wrap their head around doing a combo that includes a lot of different special inputs. So Smash Brothers simplified it, and then they put the the original controls in for the Street Fighter 2D characters into Smash Brothers for Ultimate, and they give you they give you like a reward for doing it the hard way. So like if you do a regular fireball, with B or whatever, you just get a regular fireball. If you do the fireball input, I think like either it has better recovery. I think it's a red fireball or something like that. Like they give you some reward for doing it the hard way. Same thing with the Tekken character with Kazuya in Smash. Like they gave him a ton of shit. He has way more like moves than any other character in the game.
The more it feels like its own thing, especially when we consider that some of the innovations that are happening in the core branch of fighting games don't necessarily translate to the advances that are happening on the platform fighter side of things. Post 2020, and given the rise of more platform fighters that really do try to be their own thing, we might actually start to see the genre make a name for itself that
The thing is, they're not hitting the points that Smash Brothers is hitting before they start adding their own stuff. I think the best, like, they don't have all the stuff. So like there's like, what was that game called? Rushdown Revolution. Rushdown Revolution feels the best to play if you want to play a platform fighter that feels like Smash Brothers, because I think some of the people that made Melee had something to do with making Rushdown Revolt. It used to be something else. It used to be Icons, I think, and then they bought the assets or whatever, and then they renamed the game to Rushdown Revolt. But Rushdown Revolt feels so good as a platform fighter. A lot of these other platform fighters, their stages are not like sized correctly. Like, if you're gonna like just copy the size and make your own stages, but make sure the size is good. Make sure your characters look good. Make sure your the way you move and the way your characters jump and the time that you spend in the air feels correct. In Smash Brothers, correct. Copy that shit. Copy the momentum from Smash Brothers, but make your own characters, make your own moves, but copy what it feels like to play Smash into a new game and then add your own stuff to it. Because this Nickelodeon game, the stages look like dog shit. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I played some of the stages in the first version of the Nickelodeon game, and the stages, the platforms be so thick. They're huge. The camera is like zoomed in all the fucking time. Like, it looks bad. And then, like, doing combos and stuff and doing stuff as the character doesn't feel good. At least not to me. It does not feel good. It does not feel like Smash feels to play. Rushdown Revolt feels good, but they are such a small niche thing that, like, no one knows about them. They're a Steam game. They're never going to be as big as Smash Brothers. They're only going to be big with the competitive community because it's a small game. But Nickelodeon has the IP, they have the characters, but they need to make the game look and feel better. Like, I don't want to have nothing. I remember everybody started trying to hop on the Nickelodeon All-Stars train when they knew that, like, Smash Brothers was finishing up, and Nickelodeon was like, "Oh, we're gonna come out with a game like Smash, and we're gonna take over as the next big Smash game." Like, that's what they wanted. They tried to market it towards Melee players, and it didn't work. Well, it kind of worked because there were a lot of YouTubers and there were a lot of Smash content creators that were entering tournaments for the Nickelodeon thing. They were making content for the Nickelodeon thing. And every time I saw a video of somebody making content or tutorial videos for this Nickelodeon game, I was like, stop it. Just stop it. Mewtwo King was playing it, and I was like, come on, man. I was like, just keep playing Smash Ultimate. Keep playing Smash Ultimate. Everybody needs to ignore this game because it's not good. Like, it's not good. I don't know why y'all wasting y'all money on this game. And then it had no voice acting in it. Like, this game was budget. Nickelodeon is Nickelodeon. You telling me they ain't got the money to have voice actors? They have voice actors. Literally. They have a bunch of cartoons. They have voice actors. Pay them to put their voices in the game. Like, what do you mean? Like, the second game has voice actors. I guess the first game made just enough money to, I don't know. But, like, the game is not good, and people should ignore it. Like, do better. What was the other game? The other game was the WB game. What the fuck was that game called? It literally escaped my brain. The game with Superman, they were just playing with Multiverses. Now, Multiverses, right? Where is it at? Multiverses was fun, but it still didn't feel like Smash. It didn't feel necessarily good to play. Like, hitting people kind of felt good a little bit. Doing certain stuff felt good, but, like, it was super floaty. Like, if they bring this game back and it's still super fucking floaty, I'm like, come on, man. But it was fun because literally everybody was fucking playing the game at the point in time. The other thing that I enjoyed about it was that, like, I could play the game. The game's alpha was pulled, and the alpha, like, the game was out. I don't want to hear this BS about it was an alpha or a beta or what. The game was out. The game came out, and then the game didn't do as they wanted it to do, and I felt like they was like, oh yeah, so we're gonna close down the beta, and the game will be back. I'm like, I feel like that's what happened. That wasn't no goddamn beta. Game came out, so the game felt good to play. It felt fun. It didn't feel like Smash, but it was fun to play just because a lot of people were playing it and they had the whole 2v2 thing. Pam was playing it with me. Pam was playing Harley Quinn. And I was playing, I think I was either playing Superman or I was playing I think I was playing mostly Superman. because like he had dumb shit. Like he like all the characters felt like busted. Like all the characters felt like they had something dumb, and you could just do this dumb shit, and then like it was fun to hit people and knock them off the screen, and then you just it would be like this intense feeling of trying to do like I don't know like the game was fun as but not as a competitive game for me. I would never enter a multiverses tournament seriously. Like if one of y'all wanted to play a multiverses tournament, like y'all wanted to do a multiverses side tournament at one of the like events that we went to, like sure, yeah, sure, let's enter multiverses, whatever. Let's do it for the hell of it. But I'm not like getting deep into multiverses unless it feels good to play. Like the game got to feel like it got some type of I don't know, like skill ceiling, like to where I can like I know that like okay, if I practice, I can get better. I can do this thing. Like you can, but like, do I really want to spend my time playing multiverses as a competitive game when there's so many other better feeling games and more fun games to play? Like
of things. Post 2020, and given the rise of platform writers that really do try to be their own thing, we might actually start to see the genre make a name for itself that manages to be
like why and then on top of that, it's not like Super Smash Brothers Ultimate just poofed out of existence. It's still here. Like if I want to play Smash Brothers, I'll just play Smash.
Success of one of the very first indie attempts at capturing the Super Smash Bros. Magic with Rivals of Aether.
Rivals of Aether, the new Rivals of Aether feels good. Rivals of Aether feels good, but it was 2D. They have a 3D version of the game now, which is fine, but it needs to be free to play. Like these games are missing that component. Like they all these games be coming out and they be trying to like charge money and expecting a niche game to be very big. Fighting games are already a niche genre that we're trying to get to be larger. Even though the fighting game scene is becoming a much larger scene, it still pales in comparison to shooters and other genres of games. Period. Pales in comparison. So for Rivals of Aether to come out and charge money and expect to I don't know what their goals are. But like they will never even be a quarter of what Smash Brothers is. Especially because they're not free to play. If they were free to play, they might be half the Smash Brothers. They might be half of what Smash Brothers is if the game was free to play, because everybody will at least download the game and just be like, "Oh yeah, let's play this game. This game's free. Let's play it." Right? And I think Rushdown Revolt is free. I think Rushdown Revolt is free to play, which is great because if it wasn't, that game would have been DOA.
Found a loving community.
Rivals of Aether, it can't cost more than $30
as a quick to pick up game.
It still needs a free to play component.
All-Star Brawl, which actually has had 2 releases since the last time Super Smash Bros. Had one. Although it's clear that Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is not going to replace Super Smash Bros., it's nice to see it be given the chance to iterate on its design and to bring even more content with its sequel. You also have Multiverses, which has gone...
Multiverses looks much, but that's the other thing. Multiverses looks like they put some effort into the graphics of the game. It looks like they put effort into the like cutscenes and stuff like that they have for this, or the marketing material that they have for this. It looks like they put work in. It looks like they cared about what it looked like. Nickelodeon All-Stars, it looks like they did not give a shit what the game looked like. Like... the 3D that they use, it looks like a cheap ass game. Like it looks like a cheap ass game that you have to pay for. Multiverses is a free game and looks better than Nick All Stars, and it's just better quality of game. Period.
develop it. But already in its first year of release, it actually went on to win Fighting Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Of course, no mention of platform fighters would be completed without talking about Brawlhalla, so let's do that.
Brawlhalla. Best case against Brawlhalla. They are doing their own thing, and they don't give a like. They number one, they care about their game. They care about their game. They run tournaments for their game. They support their game. They have, I think it's like Ubisoft. I think there's money behind the game, so they can get like guest character skins and stuff like that in the game, so that people are like, oh man, I like that character. I want to get. They did what Smash did, but with other characters. They don't have the characters. I don't think are their own characters. Maybe now some of them might be, but before they were just kind of skins of other characters that already existed in the game. But you can just have a skin of like, because there's Yoshimitsu in the game. They have the WWE All Stars in the game. So you have all these skins in the game that people are like, oh yeah, I like that character. I want to get that skin, and they go get it. And the game is free to play, and they don't give a shit about the fighting game community. They're not trying to do any. They're doing all their own shit and running their own shit. That's why Brawlhalla is so successful and is able to give their players money. Like there was like one or two people that was running the Brawlhalla gauntlet. I forget what the dude's name is. It was like two people, and they were like the two best players in Brawlhalla for a while. I don't know who they are now, but like they were making a nice chunk of change off of winning Brawlhalla tournaments. Like they were just nice. Like
Released nearly a decade ago in 2014, Brawlhalla is most likely the oldest non-Smash platform fighter, a free-to-play one at that. Although originally an indie endeavor, Ubisoft later acquired it, and that is where things started to really kick into gear. Brawlhalla is a product of its time. 6 years out from Smash Brawl, and just a few months shy of Super Smash Bros. 4, Brawlhalla's original release could not have come at a worse time to try to distance itself from the moniker of Smash clone. Even long after, in 2017, when the game entered Steam as a free-to-play title, it could not escape the tag of Smash clone. Dozens of reviews from players and outlets alike found it impossible not to mention its similarities. Yet, now that time has passed, Brawlhalla feels almost nostalgic. Platform fighters of today have a lot more complexity in each of their characters, which very much follows the path that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate carved when it decided that virtually every character should have ungodly amount of depth to it. In a world without Smash Ultimate, would the multiverses, rivals, and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawls of the genre be closer to Brawlhalla than they are in actuality? Would that be enough to create real separation between them and what we call fighting games? Going back to our comparison with first-person shooters, it was Half-Life, Thief.
Then you call them, you can't call them platformers, because platformers is a different genre of game. People don't want to call them fighters because they're not exactly like 2D, 3D anime fighters. 2D, let's just keep it simple, 2D and 3D fighters. Even though it is technically a 2D fighter, technically. But we're talking about classic 2D grounded. But even if we're talking about that, Marvel's not that. Anime fighters are not that. Anime fighters probably came from like Street Fighter Alpha, where you could block in the air and shit like that. Like being able to block in the air is not classic fighting game. It's definitely not classic fighting game. When you jump in a fighting game, you get anti-aired. Any game where you can jump and block technically shouldn't be classified as a fighting game because, oh, you can block in the air? This is not a fighting game. This is so stupid. I can see that coming out of people's mouth. It's because the objective is different. It doesn't matter. Like the objective is to, like, if you bring it down to the basic objective is to defeat your opponent by fighting them. Regardless of whether you do that with a health bar or whether you do that by knocking them out of the ring, or In PlayStation All-Stars, you did neither one of those things. I think you just had to like I think you had to build up like your special bar, and then you had to like delete them from the game by like hitting them with your super or something like that, because I don't think you could knock them out of the ring. Like I don't think you could knock them out of a ring, and there had no health bar. You just had to delete them by hitting them with your super. And um the more knockouts you had, the you were either in first place or whatever, or second place. Like, and there was a timer. Like, so PlayStation All Stars was different than the other Smash clones. All of the other Smash clones, you have to knock people off the platform. PlayStation All Stars didn't do that. But even though they have different like objectives, like on how you win, you're still you're on a stage versus an opponent, and you're fighting them, and your opponent and your objective is to defeat them, by whatever means that the game asks you to defeat them.
Deus Ex, and other contemporaries that showed the great potential of what once was considered just a pure point-and-shoot genre, demonstrating that it could do its own thing. We might be standing in the middle of the road, where platform fighters finally can shed the Smash comparison.
Follows Masahiro Sakurai's brilliant game design and be called a Smash clone. Do your own thing and be despised for not being a Smash clone. I don't think those are the two roads. It's follow the game design and be called a Smash clone, or make a basic 2D fighter that never gets any playtime. Like you either be called a Smash clone, because you're, especially if you're an indie dev and all of your characters are original. Like if you have a bunch of original characters in a fighting game, your game's not gonna last that long. Like you'll be lucky if your game lasts that long. Brawlhalla only lasted as long as it did because it got acquired by Ubisoft, and then they put characters that were not original characters from the game into the game, and people started playing the game because they was like, oh, I could be characters from WWE. Oh, I could be characters from this game. Oh, Rayman is in the game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you bring people to the game with things that they like, and people like the characters that they like to play from other games as guest characters, and that brings people to the game from other places that they would have never even played Brawlhalla, or they might have not even seen Brawlhalla because it wasn't something that was in their interest circle. But once you put something in the game that's in somebody's interest circle, it piques their interest, and they decide, do I want to play this game, or do I want to try out this game, and let me see what this game is about. It has something in it that I like. Like, but if you don't have that and you just have a bunch of original characters, your gameplay better be fucking godlike. It better be amazing. It better feel smooth, buttery, and it better be like the best thing that anybody's ever played. And people are like, yo, you gotta try this game. I know it's not like Smash, or it's not like Street Fighter or anything, but it feels really good to play, because otherwise it's very hard to sell the game with characters in it that no one cares about. Like, that's just what it is. Tekken, Street Fighter, and Mortal Kombat have characters in it that people have seen their entire lives, and you can tell when something doesn't do well. Like, say for instance, let's talk about Street Fighter 3, when they took out all the characters. Street Fighter, or what was it, Soul Calibur 5, where they stripped out a bunch of characters. People didn't care about those games as much, because it's like, yo, where's the characters that I like to play? Where are the characters from the previous game? Where are your characters at from this series? Why are all these new characters in the game? Like, what happened to my sheath stance for Mitsurugi? This game sucks. I don't want it. I'm not buying it. Like, Soul Calibur 6 came out. Mitsurugi is back to what he actually was. He has his sheath stance back. He's Mitsurugi again. They put all the characters that were in like Soul Calibur 4 in Soul Calibur 6. People bought the game. It was a better game. They went back to what they do best. They still had supers, but I was fine with that because my character was back to what he was supposed to be in the game. And I wanted to play it. And I like Soul Calibur for the reason of playing Mitsurugi. Like,
while also lending enough of its features to solidify unique identity for themselves. Whether that will continue and eventually lead to a split between them and fighting games might be a question for the next generation. There is one final aspect we want to touch on for this topic, and that is the path pro players in the FGC go through as they compete in their careers. It's very common to see players shift from various titles, even playing multiple ones at the same time. Maybe not at their peak level for both, but it's not a rarity to see these talented competitors join more than one bracket at majors and push for great results on both. But it's very rare for that overlap to occur between platform fighters and other competitors. That is not to say it does not happen. Case in point, Leffen is a brilliant Smash Melee player who has proven a success in anime fighters as well. This actually was a thing across a wider range of fighting game subgenres, with anime fighter pros generally sticking to it.
Speaking of which,
divide between them and, at the time,
they put me in a Marvel group for Seattle. And Jabril is in that group. I just find that funny. Like I was like talking to some of the people from the group because I was looking for streams from the area, and Jabril was messaging in that group too, and I was like, oh shit, I recognize that. I was like, who is that? Because it's Gabriel on his Facebook. But I was like, yo, who is? I was like, I recognize this dude, and then I went to his Facebook page and I was like, oh, it's Jabril.
Do you think this discussion of whether or not platform fighters belong in the FGC is wrapped up by now? Is there a perspective we missed? Let us.
He's like,
all in the comments. Do you think this discussion of whether or not platform fighters belong in the FGC is wrapped up by now?
It's not a matter of whether they belong in the FGC or not. It's a fighting game, and if people will play the game, if you put Smash at a major, at a fighting game major, people will fucking enter it and play it. Like, what do you mean? Like, all the people that are like, it's not a fighting game. It's not a fighting game. It's just like, if you put it at a fighting game major, people will enter it and play it because it's a fighting game. Now, granted, if you put pretty much any game at a fighting game major, people will play it. But, like, you can put it at a fighting game major and it makes sense. Like, you could put Smash Brothers or any platform fighter at a fighting game major as a main game and it will make sense. If you take a racing game and you put it in a fighting game major as a main game, people will be like, why is Need for Speed a main game at NEC? Maybe a side tournament for whatever reason, but why the hell is it a main game? Why is Need for Speed on the Evo main game lineup? Smash Brothers on the Evo main game lineup. No one will ask any questions. They will only ask, well, how come this got put on there instead of this other game? Because Smash Brothers is not a real fighting game, but like there will only be a couple of people that say that, and it's only the people that are with that argument. But literally everyone, if you put a racing game on the Evo lineup, people will be like, dude, what are y'all doing over there? Like, literally everyone. There will be no one who questions that Need for Speed does not belong on the Evo lineup as a main game. Smash and the other platform fighting games are fighting games. Like, you can't define the genre of platform fighter without putting the word fighter in it. Like, platform brawler, it's not. It's still a fighting game. Like, I just can't. Like, the fundamentals that you use in a fighting game can be applied to platform fighters. Like I don't know what else to say.
Is there a perspective we missed?
Still have mixed feelings about it not being at Evo. Oh, Smash? Yeah, like Smash should definitely be at Evo. The one reason that Smash for should, well, I mean, I guess it can't be at Evo because Nintendo is fucking garbage, right? Wouldn't that be the only reason? Because the tournament is too big for it to be there. You can only have Smash Brothers at like small events or something like that, something stupid. Or was that Street Fighter? I don't remember. They were doing some dumb stuff, but like yeah. Yeah.
Watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
What the fuck? What is this? Why is the King of Queens head on Sub-Zero? Well, the fuck is what? Why is this one? I forgot that was a meme. Oh my god.